Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of What's Happening in Travel with Kusho and Kerwin. This is Kerwin. Kusho is not here today. So the big news in aviation this week is still the fires in Maui. And my photo today is actually a map of a major Hawaiian islands. You see all over the internet, people are surprised that the houses in Honolulu didn't have any damage, but the houses in Lahaina in Maui did. Well, there's a reason for that. They're two separate islands, and actually, there's another island between the two of them, as you can see from the map here. But if you're not watching, the island between the two of them is Molokai. Now, whenever you have disasters happening, you realize how much some people in the world has no concept of anywhere. So most people, when they hear about Hawaii, they're thinking Honolulu, because that's where most people go, right? Now, Honolulu is on the island of Oahu, Oahu. Lanai is on the island of Maui. Before I go too far into it, there's and I am just going to read from some sources. I did a little research, so I make sure I tell you the right thing. There's about 136 Hawaiian islands, and I'm reading here from HawaiiLiving.com. It says, unbeknown to many, there's a grand total of 136 beautiful Hawaiian islands. 7 out of the 136 are inhabited, and the remaining 129, 9 and 716, yes, are composed of small islets, atolls, which are coral islands circling a lagoon, and coral reef. And so, but everyone only think of Honolulu. That's typically what everyone thinks of. Now you're probably wondering, well, what are the 7 or 8 major islands? And I'm gonna read those out for you, so you can tell what they are. And it's always interesting. Every time I research one of these things, and then when I come back, the stuff that I researched is no longer where I'm looking for them. Hold on one sec. Okay. So what we have is we have the Hawaii. Yes, there is an island in the Hawaiian Islands called Hawaii, and it's also called the Big Island. It's more than likely what you'll hear. And you can see if you look at the map, you can tell which one is the Big Island, right? It's the biggest one. There's also another called Kahului, which is the Target Isle. This is the smallest one that's there, and it's prohibited to the public, so you can't go. There's also Kauai, which is called the Garden Isle, and this is the third largest of the islands that are out there. And there's Lanai, which is a pineapple isle, and there is and Lanai. It once produced 75% of the world's exported pineapples. Go figure. When you go to Honolulu, you can actually go to the Dole plantation and you can visit pineapple plants. Lots of people don't know what pineapple look like when they grow. We actually grow pineapple in Jamaica, and we have all different types of pine. In Jamaica, we don't really say pineapple; we just say pine. And then there's Maui, which now everybody knows Maui because the fires in Lahaina, and it's called the Valley Isle. Then there's Molokai, which is called the Enlightening Isle, and I'm reading this from pbs.org, or the Friendly Isle. And then there's Niihau, Niihau, which is a Forbidden Isle. Only about 200 people live on that one. And there's Oahu. Oahu is the one where Honolulu is, and everybody knows Oahu. Everybody goes to Hawaii. The airport code is HNL. And yeah, those are the eight islands. I've actually been to Oahu, Molokai, Maui, Lanai. I think I've been to Kauai and the Big Island. I think I went to Hilo. I flew into Hilo, and there's actually, I think there's two airports on the Big Island. There's Hilo, and the other one is on the other side of the island. I think I flew in and out of Hilo, and I also flew into what's the other one? Kona, and Kona is the airport code is KOA. Is the airport code for that one. But most people don't really know where the all they say, I'm going to go to Hawaii, and they're really talking about Honolulu. Maui is a little rugged. When you hear people talk about the road to Hana, they're going to Maui because that's where the road to Hana was. I went to Maui many years ago, and it's always been difficult to get to Hawaii as an airline employee. And when I went to Maui, I was with myself and another friend of mine from work. We, flew into Kahului, and then we ended up going, renting a car and started driving to Hana. Now, back then, this was like pre-social media and all that kind of fancy stuff. So, and you had to use a map. Imagine using a paper map to navigate where you need to go, right? So you picked up the map at the rental car, and no social media, no directions, and you just following the map. So we're driving along, and then at some points on the road to Hana, you have to pull over to the side and let the other car pass. The two cars can't hold on the road. And so we got to a point and we're asking how much further we have to go. And the person said, oh, it's like another 3 hours. And so we looked at each other and go, well, so 3 hours to go. We'll probably spend an hour there, 3 hours, maybe 4 hours back. We need to turn around. And so I never made it to Hana because we wouldn't have made our departure flight. Because the flights in Hawaii, they arrive about 1 o'clock or so. And then they leave late at night. And most of them are red eyes. That comes back to the US. Flight time to the US is about 4 hours. There's actually a really long flight from Honolulu. The longest flight within the United States is from Honolulu to Boston, and it's flown by Hawaiian Airlines. So there are a number of long flights from the mainland to Honolulu, or to Honolulu. So what's happening now with the fires in Lahaina, and please don't go to Maui, because they're still having issues. There are still spot fires all over the place. They are still in recovery mode. They're still knocking on doors and trying to find people. And so they're still recovering bodies. So please do not go to Maui. If you have some kind of reservation and stuff, because I'm sure people still have reservations, right? And hotels or cars and stuff like that. Please do not go. The airport is really being used as a staging area to bring items in. Now, one of the things when you have these disasters is, and this happens with every disaster all over the world, when the disaster happens, you have people panicking. Then people trying to figure out, well, how can I help? And then they overhelp. So people send stuff that they don't need. Do not send stuff that you don't need. People don't need what you don't need. I know that sounds weird, but this is what people end up doing. They just end up sending a whole bunch of stuff, and it ends up getting spoiled. There are lots of reports, you can go find them online, about people who send things to other places and they just rot. And then sometimes they get so much stuff they can't distribute them fast enough. I saw them showing pictures of stuff in Hawaii, and it's just like pallet wraps and pallet wraps of stuff. a lot of that stuff is just going to spoil people. So be careful of what you send. Find out what people need and send that. One of the things I heard they were saying they needed was it was feminine supplies and what was the other thing? Diapers was what was needed. But go to the American Red Cross website. That's a good place to start. Or go to the Hawaii Tourism Board. That's another good place to start. See what people need. And if you have to send stuff, that's what you send. Don't just say, oh, they need clothes and you send clothes, because that doesn't, it doesn't help when you send all that stuff, and all it does is clog things. So look at what they need, and that's what you should be sending out to these to the folks in Hawaii. And please don't go. You don't need to go. If you have your vacation, check with the hotel, see if you can cancel it, see what they if they can give you credit for a future stay. Look at your travel insurance. If you used a travel insurance provider, or if you have a credit card, look at what the credit card that you use to buy the travel items will. And I don't know if this is covered under your travel insurance policies, because some policies don't cover things like these, but you need to check. And it's one of these where you get travel insurance. If you're going to Hawaii, it's expensive. So you should try to cover yourself with something. Don't sit there and go, oh, it's too expensive, when you're paying $500 a night for your hotel room. So spend a little money on travel insurance when you're doing these types of travels. And I can't stress, stay away from Maui. Now there is Honolulu, there's the Big Island, there's Molokai, there's all the other islands. But just know that a lot of resources are being concentrating on Hawaii. And the main part that got burnt is Lahaina, which is on the western side of the island. I've actually never been to Lahaina, because when I went to Kahului, I told you the story earlier. So I never made it over to Lahaina. I don't think we did. So that's kind of what's going on in Hawaii. That is the major news. Let's see what else is happening in the world of aviation today. The next topic I have is National Aviation Day. National Aviation Day is coming up on, what are we looking at? August 19th, which is on Saturday. So look around your neighborhood, look around your community. There's probably some cool aviation stuff going on. I think here in Houston, the Lone Star Flight Museum at Ellington Field Airport is going to have a hot air balloon event from 10 to 2, which should actually be cool. I'm surprised they're having it so late, because usually with hot air balloons, you go up super early in the morning. But I guess because it's so hot, I've never flown a hot air balloon, so it's something I want to do. Coming up is the Albuquerque is having the hot air balloon festival in October. And I've been there once, but I never went in a balloon. So they say I'm going to go, and I'm going to try to get in a balloon. So look around your neighborhood, see what's going on. In this particular thing, I guess you can, I don't know if you can go into the balloons. It doesn't really say anything, but they'll have an event if you happen to be in Houston. Check that out. And finally today, JetBlue and American Airlines created what's called, I think it was called the Northeast Alliance, and which meant they could code share on routes, and they could, if I'm as an American Airlines elite member, I can fly on JetBlue, and I can pick the cool seats, the extra legroom seats, which I actually did when I flew JetBlue A220 from Boston to Houston in July, the beginning of July. Unfortunately, that stuff is gone now, because the judge deemed that this was anti-competitive, and so they have to dismantle the alliance. And so what that means is that I used to be able to do Houston to basically anywhere, and it would give me like a connection on JetBlue, connecting to an American flight. I can't get that anymore. So you're going to see a lot of that happening where they're just pulling out of markets because they were connecting with the American Airlines flight and doing through traffic. The thing said it was anti-competitive, and so now JetBlue is going to be concentrating on their alliance with Spirit Airlines. Actually, their takeover of Spirit Airlines, and the Spirit takeover is really just it's a route takeover. Basically, they want the routes that Spirit flies. And the other thing too is that they wanted the airplanes, I think, that Spirit has in the books with Airbus. Because it's very hard when airlines order these planes, they order them a long time ago, and then they have to wait to get them. But if there's another airline who also is in the pipeline and they merge with that airline, then they get all the orders that that airline also has, which a lot of it is worth more than the network itself sometimes. So it's just a strategic takeover. What will that mean for you and I? Probably mean that it's going to be higher fares on the markets as Spirit flies, because you see a lot of basic economy tickets for like $6 to $9, Houston, LA. And the reason why you see that is because there's Spirit and Frontier in the marketplace. And now there's probably only going to be Frontier. But we'll see what happens. Because JetBlue, although they started as a low-cost carrier, is slowly not becoming a low-cost carrier. The fares are actually quite high. And it's one of the things you can see the network is falling apart in certain places. Because when they go to the Caribbean, they have a lot of flights to the Caribbean that arrive at like 0:30 in the morning, which is actually very terrible for the Caribbean. And because one, people have to get to the airport to service these flights. And whenever the flights are delayed, instead of arriving at just after midnight, it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And what happens is that whenever the flight arrives that late, the car rental facilities are closed. So this creates a lot of issues, and I hope the airline will look into things like this when they do flights in the Caribbean. And I think the Caribbean government should say, look, you can't arrive at 2 o'clock in the morning. We're not going to allow it. Because the other airlines don't do that. It's just typically JetBlue that does that. And so at some point, somebody has to step up and say, look, I know you want tourism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but you can't arrive at 2 o'clock in the morning because it doesn't help the people. It just helps you, JetBlue. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on select markets if the fares are going to go up. You know, the JetBlue is a much better airline than Spirit. The customer service wise, it's much, much better. And you see that all over the internet. So this is not anything new to you out there. But that's all I have. I don't think I have any feedback questions. Okay, so I was just checking through the feedback queue, and my friend said I talked about flying on buses rather than airplanes on like American United. And he said that, is it possible to buy an airline ticket for, say, Allentown to Newark and have your airline trip be completely 100% by bus? No. It's actually in connection to an onward flight. So you can't just buy Allentown to Newark by bus. If you want to do that, you just got to take Greyhound or something like that. Let's see. Oh, he said he got no problem with BA solving its emergency by buying KFC. The only folks who would have been put out are the first class passengers and dietary folks, vegans and vegetarians, etc. And he actually think KFC is better than 90% of any meals he's ever had in the economy. Yeah, it's actually quite interesting. I thought it was good that they at least got some food for the people rather than have no food at all. And yeah, sometimes some of the meals is, although something you can get some Kentucky chicken and they're really greasy, especially when it has like a lot of the skin and stuff is still on, which is just not my thing. But anyway, so I think he was okay with BA doing that thing. So if you have any questions at all, just let me know. Just checking if there's anything else. No, I think that was it. If you have any other questions or anything about the podcast, just let me know. And if you have anything about what's happening in travel, it hasn't been a slow week. I mean, the other things are just, the media hyping up a lot of incidents that's happening. And the difference between an incident and accident is an incident is when something happens to an airplane and no one dies, and an accident is actually when somebody dies. But there's been a lot of incidents. The thing with the media is that they want clicks. So if an airplane is descending, they will end up writing at length about it. Like if it lost altitude, they'll write about it. But it's a standard procedure. Like if something happens to the plane, then you do a rapid descent, and it's always controlled by the air traffic control and things like that. But because they don't understand, or because they want clicks, they end up having these scary headlines to scare everybody around. And you'll see that all the time. So don't click on those headlines, because all they are is just scare tactics. Because people want you to click on their headline so they can get clicks and see the ads and things like that. But anyway, that's all I have for this week. This is Kerwin with What's Happening in Travel with Kushu and Kerwin. And I guess, I have a new, it's a daily, it's not a podcast, it's just a daily travel talk is what it's called. And I just address different things and questions that I get about in the aviation industry or an airline. All right, so talk to you all soon. This is Kerwin with PassRide.com and CruiseNow2.com. Have a great trip, have a great flight, and see you soon.